Thank you for joining the session this afternoon. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name's Nick, and I'm a professor at Northumbria University in Newcastle. And I have the pleasure of having been invited to chair this session this afternoon, where you're going to meet the BAM editors, but you're also going to meet some of our friends. So this is the first session where we've got BAM editors and friends, and our friends, we've got a European flavour, friends from the Synergy Italian Journal of Management and from Business Research Quarterly. So hopefully you'll join me in welcoming our editors this afternoon. The session is going to be run as follows. I'm going to very briefly ask each of the editors to briefly introduce themselves personally, the names and the journals that they are representing. That will then be followed by a short presentation from each of the editors, which will last, around about 5 or 6 minutes each. So there are some slides for you to enjoy. Once we've done that, I've got a couple of questions which I'm going to ask the editors, which are questions that you've shared with me that you would like to be asked. So I'm going to ask the editors a couple of questions. I'm imagining that at this point we'll be about halfway through the session, and then I'm going to open it up to the floor. And then this is your opportunity to ask questions that you really want the answers to and that you're passionate about and that you need to know. So when we open up to the floor, there are some folks with roving mics, and I'm very hopeful that you'll be able to ask our editors some questions. Obviously, direct your questions either to the panel or to a specific editor. That's fine. I'd also like to take the opportunity, obviously, to welcome those that are joining us online. And those online, on the left-hand side, you've got a live Q&A button. So when we get to that section, those online, feel free to ask questions as well. So without further ado, I'm going to just very briefly ask the panel to introduce themselves, and we'll start at the far end.
Hello everyone, my name is Som Chaudhary and I am representing BJM, British Journal of Management. I'm the editor-in-chief of BJM.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Joaquín Alegre. I come from University of Valencia and I am editor-in-chief of International Journal of Management Reviews.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Marta Ugolini. I am the editor-in-chief of Synergy Italian Journal of Management, and I come from Verona.
Hello, my name is Alberto Aragon Correa. I am professor of management at the University of Granada, and I am the editor-in-chief of Business Research Quarterly.
Thank you ever so much, panel. So again, without then further ado, we'll hear from each of the editors individually about the aims and the scope of the journals and how you may be able to contribute to the discussions that are occurring in those journals. So in terms of a running order, we're going to start off first of all with Business Research Quarterly.
Okay, hello. Let's start. Please raise your hand like this if you would like to publish your research in any of the, let's say, top 20 academic journals in the field of management. Okay, basically, so we agree. So you are in the right session for doing that. This afternoon, I would like to discuss with you 3 different ideas. First, I would like to discuss with you some new trends in research publication very briefly. Second, I would like to discuss what we journals, and specifically Business Research Quarterly, are doing in order to deal with this new research trend. So it's presented in the journal, but a little bit in context. And finally, I hope that I will also be able to provide you with some kind of advice for your intentions of publishing in academic journals, not only with Business Research Quarterly, but also with other journals. So let's do that. In journals, we have usually paid plenty of attention to rankings. In Business Research Quarterly, of course, we do that. We are in all the major international rankings, including Scopus. They are in the first quartile, journal citation reports, and also in many others international and national journals around the world, including, of course, the Academic Journal Guide in the UK. So that's good. But something that is new here is that, as you probably know, if you are trying to get a promotion or if you are trying to get a research grant, it's also important research impact of your very specific papers. And this is somehow new. In the past, it used to be, okay, I have published in this journal, the journal is good, it's done. Now is, okay, let me know about your specific impact. So, what does research impact mean to us in the journal? Well, I am glad that we have published one paper on this topic this year from Herman Aguinis, former president of the Academy of Management, and Bria Jackson, and they are using stakeholder theory to in the context of the university in order to understand or scholar impact. Basically, they say, okay, research matters to very different stakeholders. So if your research is relevant for any of these stakeholders, this is good. So if you are interested in using stakeholder theory in the context of the academia, I think that this paper is useful. But it also means that we are trying to do that with the topic that we are publishing. So we are publishing topics with the capacity to engage with professional groups, such as this paper about nurses post-turnover experiences. This paper has been very discussed very actively internationally in this professional group, also in academia. We have published topics with the capacity to engage with society. Just for illustration, this paper about artificial intelligence and people management, or topics with the capacity to engage with relevant academic debates, such as this paper on this well-known academic debate about the impact of corporate social responsibility on consumer behaviors. So, good. So far, basically, we publish rigorous research that matters, and we highlight that matters. But it's not only that. It's only that we are trying to make different the process of publishing. I would like to briefly mention what we are trying to do here in order to provide that kind of impact. First, we have a pool of consulting editors who are some of the world-leading experts in different fields around the world. We have Ruth Aguilera, Herman Aguinis, Sharon Alvarez, Timo Wansal. You will probably recognize some of these names because in your own field, probably they are some of the experts. They provide advice about topics, about initiatives, very useful. But I would like also to highlight that they are not receiving any money for doing that. I am the editor-in-chief of the journal. I don't receive any salary. We are not paying anything to associate editor and so on. And I am mentioning that because it's not always the case. It's the case for all the journals here, but as you probably know, there are predatory journals with different intentions. We are proud of being a very pure academic journal. Second, we have a very unique process. of publishing open access, meaning that if your paper is accepted in the journal, we publish the paper in open access for free. The authors don't pay anything. Why is that? Well, we are proud that the Spanish Academy of Management is funding these papers, this open access publication. But in fact, we believe that it should be always like that. It does not make sense that papers have been published for only a very small group of people, or with authors paying almost £3,000 for publishing open access. So we think this is the way to make the publications. Third, different thing is about time. As you know, the publication process is quite long. And however, time matters a lot if we are talking about impact. So something that we are doing now differently, starting next year, we are moving to continuous publication model, meaning if the paper is accepted, is immediately published. We believe that it does not make sense anymore, that kind of categories of online first and these kind of things. It used to be normal in the past because the paper was printed in paper. Today, it does not make sense. Fourth, communication. It's not only publication, but it's also what happens after the publication. So that's the reason, because we have an impact editor, we have social media, very active accounts, and we are collaborating with newsletter. And finally, annual awards. It's something that some journals are doing, and we believe that this is right, because we highlight very good papers, junior scholars who are publishing in the journal, and so on. If we publish a paper and we don't say that this paper is particularly good, nobody knows. So it's important to communicate about the paper and provide some kind of process about the quality of the paper. Finally, I have here some example for illustration of the paper that we are publishing this year. I have already mentioned this paper with Herman Aguinis and Gibson. We also have Ruth Aguilera and Maria Ruiz review about the future of corporate governance, Nikolai Foss and Ambra Maselli about interference, imitation, and innovation, a regular empirical paper, or this very recent special issue about mental health, well-being, and entrepreneurship. I am providing this illustration not only because the different topics that we are publishing, we are a Big 10 journal, but also the different format that we are using. Empirical papers, of course, the regular papers are one of them, but we are also publishing review papers, a special issue, and this new category of short theoretical papers that we call perspective. So thank you very much. I hope that it was useful.
Wonderful, thank you for that to set us off in the discussion. So, Marta.
"23 years ago, when I started to take care of Synergie, now Italian Journal of Management, I never thought I could have the opportunity to come here with the BAM conference to present our journal. So it has been really a long story, and now it is great honor for me, for the editor-in-chief Alberto Pastore, for the Italian Society of Management to be here. Thank you a lot for this opportunity. So let's go to the other slides. Don't worry, I go through them. Okay, here we are. So Synergie is really one of BAM friends. It's a peer-reviewed scholarly publication that presents leading research across all business and management areas and focuses on the main trends in management study. Even if it is strongly based in Italy, it is an international journal and has a long history in the Italian management scholars community. because Synergie, the journal, and SIMA, the Italian Association of Management, have a common mission advancing Italian scholarship in international management research. And so since 2019, Synergie has become the official journal of SIMA, becoming one of best BAM friends. So a couple of facts and figures: 182 issues published, more than 1,500 papers published so far. Synergie is now open access, and no publication fee is to be paid by the authors. It has a good ranking in the Italian system, and we'll see a middle ranking in the international. It's indexed in Scopus and in EBSCO and in other databases. And every year we organize Synergie annual conference in Italy, where BAM representatives are highly welcome, all our international friends. The governance of Synergie is an expression of the Italian community of management scholars in connection with international research networks and partners. So both editors-in-chief are from Italy, but associate editors include colleagues from the US and Spain, and the scientific advisory board has members from 15 different countries. So what does it mean to be the official journal of a scientific society? Well, it helps to foster a sense of belonging, to be a community that is based on representation and on democracy. And so the journal is an asset for the entire national community. It is managed in a transparent manner. We can be sure that no economic interest in its manager are there to spoil the decision. In SIMA, we believe that publication in journal is one important way, even if not the only one, to deliver the value of our research to society. The publisher of Synergie is Fondazione Quaim. It is a private foundation, no profit, and is committed to make public available and to preserve scholarly research. So it ensures open access to the papers on its servers, and you can go and browse all the papers I told about before. Our strategic issues to develop Synergie furtherly deal with increasing internationalization. International submissions have doubled and are increasing a lot, especially our strategic partnership involve the collaboration on special issues. The rejection rate is 70%. And regarding positioning, we have a vision that put relevance in as the first, so our research has to be useful, it has to be more useful to improve really management practice and addressing business challenges that are relevant. Then originality, of course, is important, so we try to encourage creativity and curiosity, and also interdisciplinary dialogue in selecting papers, and also collaboration and respect. What is Italian in Synergie Italian Journal of Management? Well, the journal keywords include management problems that are relevant not also for Italy, but also for all mature economic systems, such as manufacture, sustainability, creativity, or digital transformation, but also the management of specific businesses that are relevant for our country, but also for many other countries, such as food, furniture, fashion, industrial equipment, art, culture, tourism, design, and luxury. As regards the thematic coverages, we are putting together Synergie structure with the SIMA's interest group, which are 13, and this will develop the structure well, having also thematic editors and thematic groups covering the main important topics in management strategy studies. So about ranking and indices, I was saying before that we are a middle journal. not a top one. We know we are there, but we try to do seriously our work. Our ranking in Chicago is Q3. The site score was 1.8 last year, and it was 1.6 at the beginning of August, so it will be increasing. The special issue forthcoming regards sustainable corporate governance, and the submission have to be done by the end of this October. And then the new conference with the call for paper will be about transforming management in the era of post-globalization and agentic economy. So to sum up, why publish in Synergy Italian Journal of Management? No commercial issues are involved. The quality standards are high and serious. The ranking is increasing. We have a wide and increasing indexing and diffusion in an open access policy, and there is a reasonable time from submission to first post review to eventual publication. And I repeat, no cost for the authors. People are nice, so welcome to Synergie. Join the Italian community of management scholars, work on paper with us and research together. We want you for publication, for quotations, and for review, and we are open to proposal for special issues or fast track. So we wait for you. Thank you.
Wonderful. So we've given a little bit of extra time to our friends there, and hopefully you'll forgive me and the editors will forgive me if we're a little bit meaner with the BAM journals. So IJMR, you've got 4 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, very good. Thanks for your attention, for being here. IJMR is one of the flagship journals of British Academy of Management. So many of you know about the journal. This makes it easier for me to reduce the time. Many of us do literature reviews. Of course, PhD students, I can see here quite a few, but also more senior academics. Every now and then we are entering a new topic. We prepare a research application, and we have to do a literature review. So once we do this task, why not publishing it? Okay, so this is the very first issue I wanted to comment to you, that we regularly do literature reviews, and we should try to publish them. Okay, there are many ways of publishing a literature review. In International Journal of Management Reviews, we are trying to publish literature reviews that have an additional value added, that have a theoretical contribution, a theoretical development, a conceptual contribution. Okay, so we are trying to publish papers that are more useful somehow. Once you have done all this task, all this work with the literature review, being descriptive is interesting, but we are expecting papers that move forward the field. Okay, so that they are developing a new concept. There are plenty of concepts. For example, I was thinking now about absorptive capacity. It was published in the 90s. It was defined as the investment of R&D in comparison to the turnover of the company. But such a concept has been evolving, and now it has plenty of nuances. So you may come up with a literature review that implies a refinement of the concept. And this would have much more value added. Or you may link different variables, different concepts, or you may revise different theoretical frameworks. At the end, we want to have not only a description of how the field is, but also this value added on developing a concept or moving forward the theory that is being used in this topic. Okay, this is very important. So this was my very first message. Besides this, the journal has 3 editors-in-chief, Alexandra Borrega, who is here with us, myself, I am Joaquin Alegre, as I said before, and Ashish Malik, who is in Australia now, he couldn't come. There are 13 associate editors. It's a journal that has we pay a lot of attention in being rigorous, being very, very sound in the review process. Okay, as papers come to the journal, as papers are submitted, the first review is done by the editor-in-chief. We are going to look at these issues I was just commenting a few minutes ago. We want to go to the abstract, the introduction especially, and the discussion. We want to find this. Is there a theoretical contribution? Is there a new concept there, refined? Is there something else? If it is only descriptive, it might be very interesting, but it's not to be submitted to this journal. I mean, it should be just rejected. Okay, there are all the journals that can be published there. This. It's a journal that is attractive in many ways. It's quite eclectic. We accept very different types of literature reviews with different methods, meta-analysis, systematic literature reviews, narrative literature reviews, and so on. The editors-in-chief, associate editors, and the reviewers are very international and coming from different fields, and it's a journal that is very much in favor of disciplinarity. Okay, I'm trying to publish bold papers that are that may move the field forward. This is important. It's well ranked. The impact factor is very good. Yes. Yes, basically that's my main message. Here you have some figures. You can go to the website, of course. You're going to find plenty of instructions there and guidelines. I think it's very important to look at them. Here you have some figures. In my opinion, the figures here are harder than they should be. Okay. I want to highlight that many of the papers we just reject are papers that do not follow the guidelines or are not following what I was just commenting to you. I mean, it's a descriptive literature review. It's very interesting, but this is not the journal for this paper. Yes, there is simply a number of an organization of research streams on the topic, or so. This we want to be very, very, very exigent here and communicate that we want to publish papers that are going to be like a strategic platform for the topic in the future. Okay, by doing that, we are forcing authors, I think, to write better papers. And this is good for everybody because the papers may have more citations. This is going to be good for the authors and good for the journal as well. Okay, good for the journal as well. Here I have put some publication criteria to consider very quickly. Very quickly. Well, some key issues here. Sometimes it might happen that the topic is too young. Okay, this happened to me recently. It was a literature review on a topic that was very, very young. My PhD student did a systematic literature review. He came up with 18 papers. It was not enough for a journal like International Journal of Management Reviews. We published it somewhere else. It was interesting, but somewhere. Okay, so is the field mature enough to make a literature review? Is a good question here. How your literature review could be differentiated for previous literature reviews. For example, a topic I am looking at a lot nowadays is digitalization. There are lots of papers on this. Okay, there are lots of literature reviews too. Does it mean that you don't have to do a literature review on this? I would say no. Let's go for it, but it should be different to the others. Your angle, your perspective, your approach should be different and provide something else. Okay, being up to date, of course, is super important. Your conclusions, again, I want to highlight this, have to move the field forward. Yes, but at the end, this is basically what we're looking at. We have we published in 2023 the editorial note giving instructions on what we are expecting for papers in the journal. You can also use recent papers of the journal or as an exemplar, or what the journal is expecting. I really recommend this. Once I had the question, but this literature review I am reading in the journal, my literature review is different, of course, but I think it's good to read the previous recent literature reviews to see how they were built, how all ideas were connected, and so on and so forth, how the authors succeeded in putting forward an important and relevant contribution. To end, to finish, just wanted to emphasize, to underscore here that we are having five very interesting special issues at the moment. One is on entrepreneurship, another one very much in the avant-garde of the field on gender, time, and organizations. Another one of neurodiversity, super interesting too. Another one of disciplinarity and its connections with sustainability in business. And finally, another one with complexity in organizations. All of them super interesting. They're going to be ready to read very, very soon. And you may find there literature reviews that are current and very, very relevant. And with this, I finish my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Wonderful, thank you. And last but not least, BGM. Yeah, I was going to.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, that's okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this BAM Editor session. It's a pleasure to have you here. I am representing British Journal of Management. We are also a flagship journal of BAM, and we have a journal impact factor of 5.7, and we are ranked ABDC as A, ABS 4, and also in Q1. Now, in our journal, we have two co-editors in chief. My colleague Shuang, she's from Queen's University. We have associate editors who represent different disciplines and fields, and we have a communication editor who helps to promote the paper in different social media channels once a paper is published. We have 131 editorial board members from different parts of the world, and we have our wonderful managing editor Emma here, who is also the managing editor of IJMR. Now in BGM, we invite and we welcome papers from all disciplines because we are a multidisciplinary journal and respecting various research traditions and methodologies. So we are inclusive of, as it's here, all disciplines and all methods that are very popular in the business and management scholarship. There are different kinds of articles that we publish in BJM. So we have the usual empirical articles, which are based on quantitative, qualitative, mixed method. However, we have conceptual articles. The conceptual articles are different to IJMR in the sense that they are not review papers. They have to be papers which, based on a deductive logic, come up with a propositional model or a similar theoretical contribution. So the conceptual articles are not review articles, and we have methods articles where we publish creative and innovative methods that help to move the needle in the field and advance the scholarship. We have a management knowledge education section, MK section, where there are three kinds of articles, which is management theory, education theory, and management educator. So management educator articles are essays, which are more personally based, and education theory and management theory articles are different in the sense that in one, the empirical advancement is based on disciplinary developments, and in education theory, it is based on pedagogy and research in management education. We in BJM this year are launching the sustainability and responsible business section, and this will be for interdisciplinary research on sustainability and responsible business. We will make a formal announcement soon. This is currently the scope that we have tentatively decided. We wanted to share with you first. We haven't yet put it on any of our socials or website, but please check back the website for more details. In interdisciplinary sustainability and responsible section, we are looking at not only new work, but unique work that helps to advance the business and management scholarship beyond what we already know. More advice, more information will be published soon in the website and through an editorial. Currently, there are some special issues upcoming. One is generative AI for future decision making. The paper submission deadline is 1st to 31st of December 2025. A PDW is being organized for this. And the second one is augmenting the impact of practice turn in business and management research. And the deadline is next year, but for augmenting the impact of practice turn, there will be PDWs over the rest of the year. So please follow our LinkedIn and you will have more information there. Now, other than publishing journal manuscripts, we also publish teaching and learning guides related to the papers that can be used inside classroom and also enhance the scholarship of the research that is being published. We also have a number of video abstracts that you can go through to get an idea of what kind of research is published in BJM. So you can email us. You have a website. You can go through the website to look at our scope, submission guidelines. Please follow the submission guidelines and follow us on LinkedIn and X, formerly Twitter, just to know what is going on and what are the new developments and deadlines. So thank you so much. I hope I was in time.
Yeah. Yeah, that is brilliant. So again, just quick final applause for all 4 editors for this. So what I'd like to do next, I've got, as I say, I'd approached a number of people that are here in the audience and asking for some questions just to kick off the Q&A. So the first one is really personal to me. So on the basis that I've got an absolutely huge portfolio of papers that have been desk rejected, can you tell me, could you give me 2 tips about how I can reduce that number of desk rejects? So 2 tips, please. Because if you don't, I'll have to move house to accommodate this pile of work. So given that I was really mean to my BAM colleagues a moment ago in terms of crunching the time, IJMR, would you like to kick us off? Two key tips.
Okay, that's a very good question. We all have desk rejections, but in looking at IJMR, I would say that the first one is to read the guidelines. I think this you can use it for all journals, and the second one, I think you have to. It's important to read the latest papers in the journal, because by doing that you're going to feel what's the style of the journal, how ideas are organized in the papers in this journal, and you can also come up with knowing what are the topics, what are the debates that are on in the journal. So by reading the latest papers of the journal, I think it's going to be easier. Latest, I mean, last 3 years, for example, or last 4 years, it can be easier to position your paper in terms of what the journal is expecting.
Thank you, and I'm going to ask perhaps BGM. Is there anything additional you'd like to add to those two initial tips?
I think one of the most important things, just I will repeat it, with what Joachim said. It was to engage with the scholarly conversations and debates in BJM, what is being published. But in addition to it, just to look at what you are claiming to do in the paper is actually what you are doing. That's the, like, I see the abstract as a teaser of a movie. The abstract is interesting, very good. But as soon as we start looking at the paper, it has nothing to do with abstract is saying. So overclaiming, that's one of the things. The paper claims a lot of elements which has not been done. And the second point is to look at the scope of the journal and to look at what the journal wants. In BJM, if you look at the author submission checklist, there are a list of 5 questions that helps to understand and answer whether this submission fits into BJM or not. So answering these questions and look back at what you are doing is actually fit to the journal or not. So those are the 2 elements I will say.
Wonderful, thank you. And Marta, would
Maybe,
you like to add anything?
Yes, a practical hint to Odd is to start to think about the journal you are going to submit while you are writing, and not look for a place of submission after you have finished your product, because you have to consider the different styles and ways. So it's really an important part of research process to select the proper journal where to make the selection. Also, in our journal, the most important recurring reason for desk rejection is that there is no coherence with the aim of the scope of the journal. Synergy has a general approach. So if we receive a very vertical and strict papers, we are not interested in it. Maybe it's very good for another journal. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Roberto. Anything you'd like to add?
Yes, please let me say something. Especially, don't feel bad. This rejection is the new normal now. And I think that this is important to know, because otherwise you feel frustrated, you feel irritated, and this is like, what are we doing? Well, it's like that. The reason for that is because the volume of papers is growing exponentially. We, Business Research Quarterly, we are receiving 1,200 papers each year. We publish only 40 papers. What can we do? But it's not only our problem. This is a general problem. The volume of papers is growing exponentially, and the journals are basically the same, especially the top journal, the good journal, the journal that we are trying to publish. So this rejection is now, as I say, the new normal, and it means that you have to be ready for that, but also means that you have to be strategic in order to deal with this kind of situation. And I basically agree with all these ideas, and especially let me highlight that you have to be very clear about your contribution in the paper since the very beginning. What are you trying to do differently? It's not necessary that it's new. We just reject many right papers. They are right, but they don't add anything new to the theoretical debate about that topic. That's it. Sorry.
Wonderful. So thank you for that. And I guess for me, when I hear those comments, and some of you may have been in the Meet the Non-BAM Editors session yesterday, and what I've heard today, in a way, are very similar themes. Desk rejection rates are high, but actually there are some key pointers. If you're going to submit to a journal, each journal has its own conversation going on. And if you're going to join that conversation, you need to read the journal to know what the conversation is. You've heard about meeting the aims and the scope of the journal. So knowing the aims of the scope, what the journal will accept and does not want, is really important. So knowing the aim, knowing the scope, knowing the conversation that's taking place. And then perhaps the killer one is then making a theoretical contribution from the work that you are submitting. And it seems to me that actually if we really boil it down to kind of those key basics, perhaps desk rejection need not be the new normal. And in actual fact, what we then have is a really good chance of getting our work into some of the top journals. But it is a brutal process if you're not joining the conversation, you haven't read the aims and scope of the journal, and you're not making a theoretical contribution. I suspect that it's reasonable to assume that a desk reject will occur. So note to self, right? So good. I'll take note of that for my own future work. I guess if there are follow-up questions when we come to the audience, feel free to ask any follow-ups on desk reject. I could see a hand. I will come to you. I will come back to you. So the second point then is one of the other big challenges I know is obviously when we think about the process, quite often once we get past a desk reject process, hopefully we're now faced with a review and resubmit. And that first review and resubmit quite often leads you into two very different pathways. If we deal with it well, we may well get a second, and if we get a second, there's probably a very reasonable chance that we're going to be successful. But if we haven't dealt with the comments adequately, unfortunately, the opposite is probably the case. So that first review and resubmit, of course, in this process is really important. And I guess, again, coming back to now going in the opposite order, again, there are kind of just a couple of tips, particularly when you might have 3 or 4 reviewers that perhaps have given slightly conflicting opinions in terms of advice on how to deal with those kind of conflicting remarks and the process that you might go through.
Well, the first thing, you should ask for advice to the editors. Some of the editors are very open, some others are not so open. In the Business Research Quarterly, we try to summarize the main ideas in the editorial letters, meaning that, of course, different reviewers could provide different views, but the editor should be in charge of providing a general leadership to the process. So please pay specific and special attention to the editorial letter in this kind of situation. If the editorial letter is missing, sometimes it's missing, email to the editor and ask for orientation. It could be helpful. If it's not, it's okay. You can follow the path, but sometimes it's quite useful. 2 extra advices here. First, please be flexible. When you submit the paper, you feel that it's a good paper. Now you are receiving heavy criticism and you say they are not right. This is normal. But after some time, you realize that maybe they are a little bit right, or maybe they are completely right, maybe. So please be flexible. And the last one, don't be too flexible. If you are too flexible, the paper will be a mess of many different ideas, and in the next round, reviewers reading the paper will say, okay, yes, you have made everything, but this does not make sense at all. So, well, I hope that it's useful.
Wonderful.
It's a positive news and revise and resubmit, because it means that reviewers and editors recognize the potential. Otherwise, we go to the desk rejection. Normally, this is also normal in the Italian Journal of Management. In the most cases, it is a matter of unclear positioning. So, what you are trying to do, and what happens usually is that author try to hold content to the original version of the paper, which becomes bigger and bigger, and has no more its original idea, so it becomes, yes, weaker and more. So we don't have to be afraid to rewrite and to readdress the, of course, if the author agrees with the main point. And very, very important also, yes, I agree that editor should take time writing the editorial letter and selecting the most important hints is the response letter to author, where author explain their choices and be explicit about if they don't completely agree with the comment, they should declare. It is a part of the scientific debate in the university. Still, we can debate and have very different ideas with respect and attention for the other people. So we have to defend this way of debating in our community.
Thank you. Well, yes, I agree that Revise and Resubmit is a very good new. Normally, the editors, if they feel that there are a few chances of improving the paper, they are going to be inclined to rejection. So it means that if you have a Revise and Resubmit, it means that you have chances to improve your paper. It means that there are things that were not well understood. Very often it happens to all of us that we have clear ideas in our head, but when we write it down in a paper, it's not that clear. We think it is clear, but 3 persons, 4 persons, 5 persons read it, and it is not that clear. So it's important to go back and revise and yes, accept the criticism, of course, and do all this with the aim of improving the paper. Another advice is, I think it's important for authors when answering to be pedagogical. Perhaps the reviewer didn't understand something. Perhaps the author did not explain himself or herself properly. So it's important to be pedagogical, to explain things clearly and to make sure it is clear. Yes, once the review round starts, normally it's positive. If there are conflicts, again, I agree with Alberto Aragon that normally the associate editor should guide in the review letter. He or she should guide the way of answering it. And if there were doubts for the authors, if it was not clear enough, again, I think contacting the editors is always an option that you have. Thank you.
You have said everything that could be said. First of all, when you receive an R&R, don't look at it for 1 week. That's what I will say. Just to be honest, because like it's sometimes to give time can helps to basically take and understand better, to reflect. So that's one thing. But from R&R perspective in BGM, the most important thing as an author for you is the response letter. Responding to the comments that the reviewer has asked, not what I think the comments are, the comments that reviewer has stated. And responding means not providing descriptive, thank you, I revised, thank you, I changed. Explaining what you have changed and why, because you will of course reflect the change in the main paper by highlighting or something along those lines, what the change is. And if you rebut, because there is option for rebuttal, that you don't agree with something, as researchers sometimes we don't agree, it should be basically, I would say, when you put an argument, you should cite relevant references in order to prove your point. It just not should reflect that it's my idea and I think like this. Because at the end of the day, the reviewer is just reading your paper. They don't know what it's in your mind. So it is extremely important to descriptive response letter is okay, but meaningful response letter that reviewers, when they read, they understand where your positioning is coming from. Response letters don't have word limits, but response letters should not be just repeat of what you have done in the paper. And that's the most important thing, I feel, one of the most important things in R&R.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Now, I did say I had a kind of a third question, but I'm very conscious we're 30 minutes or so from the end. So I'm going to hold that one back for a bit and just see if you yourself raise it. So let's just follow up on the two questions that we've asked, and I'm hoping those with roving mics. I can't spot you at the minute, but I know we've got a question here, followed by one down here. So, and again, just to remind those online, if you want to ask a question, there is a live Q&A button. Over to you.
Thank you. Yes. Good afternoon, and thank you for your presentations. I really appreciate the insights. I'm Helen, currently studying in Monaco, but my research focuses on Uganda. I would like to know, how can we approach publication process in journals such as yours when the research focuses on a very specific country that happens not to be in Europe? In my case, the title explicitly locates the study in Uganda. Is this considered as a challenge or a potential reason not to be considered for publication?
Thank you. Is there a particular journal you would like to?
Sorry?
Yes, is there a particular one you'd like to lead with that?
No, all of you, if that's possible, of course.
Wonderful. So as you have the mic.
Thank you for the question. We are inclusive journal, and wherever you collect the data from, that's just fine. It can appear on the title or anywhere. But the most important thing is the theoretical implication and the practical implication as a result of the findings. So that part is very important, and that is what we look at. We are not necessarily looking at the specific country, and that is not considered as a unique or newness, even if any country that is. So that's an important point, I would say, to keep in mind, to think about what your findings are saying and whether the data is answering the research question that you are trying to answer in that paper.
Very good. Your question was very interesting. From the International Journal of Management reviews, well, it's reviews of the literature. So I think we normally, it would be difficult to justify a literature review in a particular geographical area, okay? But I think that besides that, for other journals or publishing in general, having data from Uganda may have several advantages, such as probably there are very few empirical evidence on this, on this region of the world. But you have to tell a story that is specific. I think my suggestion here would be to try to justify that in Uganda there is I don't know, a institutional framework that is different, or cultural issues that are different. Let's say that apples fall down to the floor, and this gave to the law of gravity. It happens in England and in Uganda too. So confirming all theories wouldn't be, I think, something interesting. But trying to find what's special in Uganda or the region, and find specific hypotheses or connections that are different in Uganda from other parts of the world could be very interesting, I think.
As regards the Italian Journal of Management, it would be interesting to analyze other countries that have similar problems. For example, aging population in Italy is a big demographic problem, or the turnover of small companies is another important problem. So the problem is important, and it would be an interesting way to compare. We don't have many really at the moment comparison studies, but it would be very interesting selecting the proper topics.
In Business Research Quarterly, we are an international journal, and we are receiving papers from all around the world, and we are happy of receiving these kind of papers. We are receiving papers from South America, Asia, Africa, and so on, and we are very glad. There are not many papers with good data from these countries, so I think that it's an advantage for you. But I completely agree with previous comments about this is not definitive. You have to think about if okay. So you have to think about if the situation in Uganda is different for that specific topic or is the same. Depending on that, you could make a different approach or not. And second, and very important, if the situation is different, so what? What should be different in the research framework? Let's say that stakeholder theory is not right for the context in Uganda because something. It is very important because you are making a theoretical contribution, because you have data to show that. So I think that it could be very good if you are able to do that. If not, the situation is similar. Okay, it's Uganda, it doesn't matter. It could be Spain, Italy, France, or whatever.
You. I just before we come to that, I just thought that was really interesting, wasn't it? We're talking about review and resubmits, and we get a message through that says turn left and turn right. So I just thought that was quite a kind of interesting message from beyond. Over to you.
Thank you. Just want to share, reiterate what you mentioned earlier on, that you mentioned that rejection is a new norm. Well, I think rejection is inevitable in research. So this is something I realized when I started getting rejections early in my career. So I developed a thick skin to understand, I need to revise and resubmit. But my question is very general here now. What makes an ABS4 a 4 and others 3, 2, and 1? And why is ABDC A star A? So some journals in ABS are highly ranked, whereas in ABDC are A or B or C. So what's the reason behind that disparity? I just want to have your perspective. This is for me to understand, because when I read the scope, pretty much everybody say rigor, significance, methodology and all this stuff. But when it comes to submission, you are ABS4, 3, and 2, and so. So the story is the same, right? So why is it that disparity in terms of 4-star and 3 and so on and so forth? Thank you so much.
That is a great question, isn't it?
I hope I didn't put you in the hot spot, but it's a very specific question.
So obviously, as panels around the world, particularly ABDC, are meeting imminently about particular rankings. I'm sure, obviously, that question may be better directed at those on the panel, potentially, than this panel. But if you don't, but given the spirit of you asking the question, whether there's one person on the panel that would like to make a comment. Yeah.
So I don't represent the panel, so I won't say. You asked the questions, right? So the thing is that, why do you think that there is a difference? What do you think is the difference? The work, because you said that you are submitting ABS4, ABS3. So what is the difference of the work that you submit in ABS3 and 4 as an author?
As an author, I think because my university says that you have to publish in high-ranked journals. For promotion purposes, if you want a promotion, you want to hold ABS4 star. Right? So that is what I think, or I've been made to think about. Forcefully or unforcefully. But I want to understand from your point of view as an editor-in-chief, why is that the case?
So
I'm again apologizing to put you in the hot spot.
So I take facilitator's privilege so that we can get some additional questions, obviously, about publishing. But I will. I mean, it's interesting you say, of course, that universities giving guidance to publish in 3- and 4-star journals. Well, of course, in the UK, they don't. I mean, in the UK, we're obviously concerned with, in terms of ref, with ref. Yeah. I'm not suggesting you. I'm not suggesting you are. But obviously, originality, significance, and rigor. So, I think again, this is obviously an area of debate, which is multi-layered. I'm going to suggest you've been really brave asking that question, but I'm going to suggest perhaps we take that one off-piste. So could I?
Sorry, I got the mic.
We've got a mic. Sorry, we'll come back to you. We've got a mic over here.
Sorry, I'll take advantage of mic being in my hand. Thank you so much to the panel and everyone. One thing that really stuck me was when you said BRQ, for example, publishes at most 40 articles a year. Now, in the face of this growing community of scholars, in the face of I'm sure there are many good ideas coming out. Why should there be a limit in at the top journals in terms of the number of articles that are getting published? Because at the end of the day, the journals are about conversation in whatever field that journal is. And of course, as my very good friend said, they are linked to tenure, decisions, promotions, and all that. So why should the top journals not be a little bit more liberal in terms of the number of articles that get through, especially if they are meeting that quality threshold? Now, I myself am an editor of Small Business Economics, and we receive about 1,500 submissions every year. So I understand, the difficulty in terms of making those decisions. But I also see that the journal is receiving more and more good quality submissions, and that's where my question is coming up from. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yes. Good. Right. So again, I think if I may take again facilitator's privilege, I think again, and obviously as an associate editor, that is a really good question about the capacity within certain journals. And again, I think it's a really interesting question that could easily use up the next 20 minutes of time that we have left. So again, if the audience are happy with this as a direction, because it's your session, not mine, is I'm conscious, though, with all due respect, there will be a number of colleagues in the room that obviously will have questions about how to get published in the journals, and I appreciate capacity is one of those issues. So do you mind if I just park that question slightly and park that question and say, if we've got time, let's come back to them. But let's just see if there are additional questions that we can deal with on a practical basis.
Thank you very much for this attractive panel. This is Payman from University of Essex. I have 3 questions related to 3 and 4 journals. Okay, they're very straightforward. The first one, nowadays we hear that those top journals are interested to publish papers that are dealing with secondary data rather than primary data. First of all, I want to know, is it the right quotation or not? This is the first question. The second one, for the primary data, what are the requirements that those top journals would like we go through? And in terms of secondary data, what are the requirements? These are my 3 straightforward questions. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. So it strikes me that this is obviously a question about rigor. So in terms of rigor of data, so in terms of getting published in your journals with, let's start with secondary data. Again, is there any particular panel member that you would like to address the question?
3 and 4.
3 and 4.
I think for any journal, it's not just 3, 4, any journal, rigor is important. For you, your first question was whether the primary or secondary data, that terminology is correct or wrong. The point is that primary or secondary data depends a lot on the discipline you are talking about. Okay, so it is not just a straightforward answer yes or no. It depends on the discipline as well. If you go by the normal research terminology, then primary data is something that you are collecting on your own, and secondary data means that a data that is already available. It can be publicly available or it can be behind paywall. This depends. The most important thing is that there has to be data integrity and data transparency. That means that the data you are using is credible, comes from a credible source, irrespective, because we nowadays, I'm just being a quantitative researcher, I will say that use a lot of fake and MTER to collect data, but there are processes in place, rigors in place in order to understand whether the data comes from a human or whether the data comes from a bot. That is very important, and we look at it. So rigor, credibility, and when you are talking about secondary data, the most important, so secondary data, there can be many different types you have to understand. Sometimes the data can come from you're taking data from 3 different sources. And the question then becomes, how are you using integrating those 3 different sources in order to analyze? Now, beyond your primary and secondary data, the most important point that I would like to make is that what does the data answer the research question, and does the findings lead to something that has strong implications for extending the theoretical perspectives, challenging the theoretical perspectives we have, and also that lead to practical implications. This may seem something very simple statement. However, we always in BJM make a point that yes, you can have data, whatever form of data you have, it has to be credible, as I said. But what is the data talking about? Can this data answer the research question you are posing? So that's not the most important element, but the whole. So we say that you're building the whole paper around the data, but you have to think from the beginning, follow the research processes. So I hope that I have answered 1, 2, 3, all your questions, right? To some extent. Yeah.
Well, in International Journal of Management reviews, we don't publish empirical papers. It's only literature reviews. You could find a regression in a meta-analysis, for example, but you wouldn't find the secondary and primary data. Okay, I don't know if you want somebody else to. It's okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, panel. We've got the mic in the front. Thank you for.
I think that
that.
that's the way to ask the question. Thank you. No, my question is to Shaumadeep. When you said that conceptual articles need to be propositional, right? So then there are other journals. I mean, of course, similar journals which are publishing conceptual articles that may not be really propositional, but they are developing some kind of framework. Of course, depending on they are synthesizing the literature, and some of them they also let's say generate some kind of case studies and then analyze those things and then develop a framework. Would that kind of work be considered within BJM as a conceptual article, because it's again developing something conceptual, something new?
Yeah. So what I said was it has to follow a deductive logic, which is not a review, and it has to come up with some form of propositional model or a similar theoretical contribution. So if you are talking about a theoretical framework, then the point is that the theoretical framework will perhaps lead to some propositions, some form, but it really depends on how that deductive logic has been framed in your research, because otherwise it is IJMR. We have our sister journal who basically published that. My suggestion is that you have a look at the conceptual papers that have been published in BJM, and that will give you a very good idea of what kind of papers in that particular scope we publish. That is the reason we said that it is important to understand and know the journal very well. What other journals do that is in their scope, and they have made that. So that's where the difference will be.
Right. So just a follow-up question. So does that mean that, if there is a new method, for example, developing new cases, of course, based on existing data, but these are new cases, and then analyzing those cases to really develop a conceptual framework. I know that that kind of thing has not been published in BGM, but if it really leads to a conceptual framework, will that be something which can be?
So when you talk about cases, what do you mean by case? Just to be clarified, is it a business case? Is it
okay?
So because I'm just mindful about the terminology,
Right.
because that's why when we are looking at the terms, we have to think about the disciplinary boundaries where those terms are coming from, right? So that is the reason I asked the question.
Yeah, that's fine. So it's not a case as in the case published in a Harvard Business Publishing. That it's not a case, but let's say we have different case studies which are developed from the stakeholders, different kinds of stakeholders, so that it can bring in the perspective of different stakeholders. Otherwise, otherwise there cannot be any limit to it. So let's say certain different case studies developed from the point of view of different stakeholders, so then they are used to synthesize and then develop a conceptual framework.
So that seems like having an empirical flavor, because you are developing different cases from different stakeholders, and you are using that case in order to develop or propose a conceptual framework. That seems to be having empirical flavor rather than a conceptual article. So if that has empirical flavor, then we welcome such submissions in BJM.
Okay, right. Thank you. Even if that data is from the secondary data, even then, right?
Now, when you're talking about case
studies,
yes,
but these are not really from interviews. This is based on existing data, but then these are new case studies which have not been done.
And where is that data located?
Yeah, so these are constructed from different data sources. So this will include some people's thesis, some people's published papers, some other work like that. So based on that, then these are developed.
I think if that's the definition of case that you are using, perhaps you have to look closely if those actually bring any novel or unique findings. If they are borrowed from other papers which already have novel findings, then perhaps the novelty factor might differ, and it is pushing towards review paper, something similar. It appears so.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
So good evening, everyone. My question is related to the qualitative data. When we are writing and collecting the data qualitative, and it is usually based on an inductive logic, that's what we believe. However, this induction is not purely inductive. We also, because study, so something in our mind, we also have the deductive logic. So my question here is that whenever we are writing the theoretical part of the paper, what exactly should we write in the theoretical section? And should we write it or should we not write it, or should we do it in the findings section as a theoretical contribution?
And was there a particular member of the panel you wanted to direct?
I would like to put it to IJMR, this, because reviews and also this synergy.
But if I understood well, you are talking about data. And then
qualitative data. So we have
no empirical papers. We don't publish empirical papers.
You don't publish a
only
paper.
Reviews of the literature in a particular topic.
But even if it is for a review paper, should we put the theory in the theoretical section, or should we put it as in the theoretical contribution towards the findings? It becomes very confusing when you're writing a paper, because usually we get a test rejection that there is no theoretical contribution. So
if there is empirical data analyzed, there should be a test rejection in the journal. So it wouldn't fit the target of the journal.
Okay.
I think just interjecting, I think your question is a really good question.
Because basically anybody can answer. It may be answered by the BGM also. Yes, probably. Yes.
Maybe being answered
Anybody
by
can
the wrong
answer,
journal.
because that's very important when we are making a theoretical contribution. So what exactly is the theoretical contribution? It is just an extension of a theory. I would like to understand from the editorial perspective, because usually the rejections are there is no theoretical contribution. So what exactly is the theoretical contribution from? If anybody can answer,
because I have the mic, I can go on. If there is no data and there is no empirical analysis, and you do a literature review, and as I was said before, you should be coming up with a theoretical contribution. It means that you have revised the field and you are proposing a new framework. You are proposing a new conceptual refinement. You are criticizing a theory, for example, and saying these assumptions, assumption number 3, I am critical against these are ways of developing theory. There is a paper that was published in Journal of Management Studies in 2020 by Post and others. I can give you afterwards all the details. And there, the authors were giving, I think it was 6 or 7 ways of putting forward a theoretical contribution after doing a literature review. I can give it to you later on.
Okay.
I don't know if any other.
I'm not sure I have understood the question. Maybe we can talk later and go in more in details in the problem. Yes,
Sure,
I will do it with pleasure.
Yes, I would really like to do that.
Yes.
Thank you for your question. So folks, I'm going to finish off with, there's just a question online, which again might be interesting for many of you in the room, just to finish today's session. The question is specifically aimed at BRQ, but I'd quite welcome just a very brief comment from the other panel members, which is your recruitment process for editorial board members. So thank you, Nahid, for the question online. But BRQ, so when you're thinking about reviewing for the journals, joining an editorial board, what's your process for doing that?
Okay, we are changing our editorial members regularly. I think that is good for any journals. And when we do that, we are opening positions online for the editorial positions. So presently, I am the new editor-in-chief. I have been in charge only 1 year now. It was an open position for that. We have now changed, our senior editors are now new, and they were in also in a similar situation. So basically, we open position. People who are interested say, okay, here I am, I'm interested, this is my CV, and we make a selection of people. For reviewers, this is a more interactive process. It depends on the expertise of the people, and the associate editor are always happy to get people who are expert in specific topics, and they are open to consider that option as reviewable. Any other?
We don't have a formal procedure. When people are presented by senior members that we know, we try to understand if people are willing to collaborate and to see the potential of the person more than having requirements of a long CV.
Very good. In International Journal of Management Reviews, we have open calls too for editors-in-chief, associate editors, for example, I am finishing my term this year in December. Now we have here my replacement is Andrea Caputo, professor at the University of Trento, and this was done through an open call, and there is a panel that assesses the different options, and all opinions are taken into account. There is also in the journal, especially for associate editors, we always want to have experts in all the fields, because as an editor-in-chief, I am not an expert in all the fields. I just look at formal issues, and I look at the contribution and all this stuff I was talking about before. We want to have editors-in-chief, associate editors in all the fields, and we try, because it's an international journal, but sometimes it's a bit difficult to have a representation of different parts of the world, and we try to have a balanced gender representation too.
Finally, anything additional to add?
We also follow the similar process as IJMR. For editors-in-chief and associate editors, we have formal calls, and you can apply, and that's why we follow our BJM LinkedIn. And for editorial board members, that was the question, you can send an email to the editors-in-chief or to the managing editor, with your details and giving a reason why you want to be the editorial board member. And we update our editorial board at BJM from time to time to represent academics globally, and at the same time to ensure that our representation across the globe is also inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we are coming up to 5 p.m. I just want to finish off by saying I parked two very important issues about capacity and about how rankings are determined. I'm sure the editors here would have no objection in continuing the conversation over the next 24 hours or so whilst we're still here. If anyone would like to do that, perfect. So I want to kind of finish off by really just thanking everyone for being here. Can we just thank again our wonderful panel? Before we depart, can we also just thank those that have made this possible today? Can we thank our roving mic folks? And our technology folks, thank you ever so much.